November the 14th, 1971, Fairground Stadium, Louisville, Kentucky. The 26th edition of the Flaget St. X rivalry would determine the city championship and the city representative in the AAA state championship game against Thomas Jefferson the following week. Flaget was favored over St. X by less than 1 point in the Courier's lit ratings and had amassed a record of 8 wins and 1 loss. Flaget lost its only game of the year the previous week to Central, in a game which was played in a sea of mud and without its starting quarterback John McGrath. St. X entered this game on a 6-game winning streak after having started the season with 3 losses in its first 4 games. Only one of those losses, however, was to a city team, and thus St. X and Flaget were tied in the city race with 6-win and 1-loss records. The Tigers had lost to Manual by a score of 6-2 as the Crimsons rallied in the final minutes to take the game. And like Flaget, they had struggled against Central, but had held on to win by a score of 14-12. While both teams boasted potent offenses, their coaches were predicting a defensive struggle, with Flaget perhaps having an advantage in the kicking game, with punter George Woollop, who was averaging 42 yards per kick. On offense, Flaget was outscoring its opponents by 15 points per game, while St. X's margin was 10. This rivalry, which was traditionally played on the second Sunday of November, had often experienced unusually warm weather, and this game was to be no exception, as the temperatures throughout the game remained in the low to mid-70s with bright sunshine throughout most of the game. Team captains Chris Schweitzer and Scott Morella for St. X and James Cordray and John McGrath for Flaget meet at midfield for the coin toss. Flaget will receive to start the game. St. X will defend the east or enclosed end zone. The kickoff is taken at the 17 by Kevin Lush and returns 9 yards to the Flaget 26, tackled by Alan Klyer. First and 10 at the Flaget 26. Robert Martin for 1 yard, tackled by Ron Hittinger. Second and 9 at the Flaget 27. John McGrath for 3 yards, tackled by Joe Altabellis. Third and 12 at the Flaget 24. John McGrath's pass intended for Chuck Russ is incomplete. Fourth and 12 at the Flaget 24. George Woollop punts 36 yards. It's returned 8 yards. Run out of bounds by John Boss. First and 10 at the St. X 48. Dan McGee for 3 yards, tackled by Eugene Rogers. Second and 7 at the Flaget 49. Chris Schweitzer laterals to John Horning for 6 yards, tackle Ray Snyder. 3rd and 1 at the Flaget 43. Dan McGee for 7 yards. Tackle Gordon Chamberlain. Penalty on Flaget is declined. 1st and 10 at the Flaget 36. John Horning for 5 yards. Tackle Lawrence Hume. There's a 5-yard penalty on Flaget. First and 5 at the Flaget 31. Dan McGee for 5 yards. Tackle Ken Groves. There's a 5-yard penalty on St. X. 1st and 10 at the Flaget 36. Chris Schweitzer for 1 yard. He falls at the Flaget 35. Second and 9 at the Flaget 35. Chris Schweitzer's pass intended for Jack Fuchs is incomplete. Third and 9 at the Flaget 35. Chris Schweitzer passes to John Wolford for 11 yards. Tackle Lawrence Hume. First and 10 at the Flaget 24. Dan McGee for 3 yards. Tackle Ken Groves and Lawrence Hume. Second and 7 at the Flaget 21. Chris Schweitzer for 12 yards. Tackle Chuck Russ and George Woolham. First and goal at the Flaget 9. Dan McGee for 3 yards. Tackle James Cordray and John Boss. Second and goal at the Flaget 6. Chris Schweitzer for no gain. Tackle Daniel Wilder. There's a 5-yard penalty on St. X. Second and goal at the Flaget 11. Chris Schweitzer's pass is intercepted in the end zone by Martin Downs. It is returned to the 8-yard line. The penalty on St. X is declined. First and 10 at the Flaget 8. Robert Martin for 2 yards. Tackle Jeff Willenkamp, Scott Marilla, and Bill Nett. Second and 8 at the Flaget 10. James Cordray for 5 yards. Tackle Scott Marilla. Third and 3 at the Flaget 15. Robert Martin for 2 yards. Tackle Scott Marilla, Ron Hettinger, and Jeff Willenkamp. Fourth and 1 at the Flaget 17. Flaget's punt of 34 yards is taken by Dick Carroll at the St. X 49 and returns 6 yards. Tackle, William Schuler and Daniel Ludwig. First and 10 at the Flaget 45. Dan McGee for a 3-yard loss. Tackle Eugene Rogers and Steve Chamberlain. Second and 13 at the Flaget 48. Dick Carroll for 2 yards. Tackle Daniel Wilder. Third and 11 at the Flaget 46. Chris Schweitzer's pass is intercepted by George Woolab at the Flaget 31. He returns 13 yards. Tackle Michael Chandler. First and 10 at the Flaget 44. John McGrath for 2 yards. Tackle Joe Altabellis and Steve Hess. Second and 8 at the Flaget 46. John McGrath passes 29 yards to Chuck Russ. First and 10 at the St. X 25. James Cordray for 3 yards. Tackle Joe Altabellis and Ron Hettinger. Second and 7 at the St. X 22. Robert Martin for 5 yards. Tackle Joe Brightwell and Joe Clements. That was the last play of the first quarter. Third and 2 at the St. X 17. Daniel Wilder for 3 yards. Tackle Bill Fisher and Ron Hettinger. First and 10 at the St. X 14. John McGrath passes 8 yards to James Cordray. Second and 2 at the St. X 6. Daniel Wilder for no gain. Tackle Joe Altabellis. Third and 2 at the St. X 6. Robert Martin for 6 yards and the touchdown. The drive covered 56 yards on 8 plays. The score, Flaget 6, St. X 0. John McGrath's extra point attempt is good, but there is a penalty on Flaget. John McGrath's extra point attempt from the 17-yard line is no good. The score remains Flaget 6, St. X 0. 10:23 remain in the first half. The kickoff is picked up by Pete Gerstel at the St. X 22 and returned 14 yards to the St. X 36. First and 10 at the St. X 36. John Harding for 1 yard. Tackle Lawrence Hume. Second and 9 at the St. X 37. John Harding for 3 yards. Tackle Martin Downs. 3rd and 6 at the St. X 40. Dan McGee for 1 yard, tackled by Michael Davis, Gordon Chamberlain, and William Schuler. Their foot is missing. St. X punts to Chuck Russ, who was tackled by Mike Chamberlain at the Flaget 19. 1st and 10 at the Flaget 19. John McGrath's pass, intended for James Cordery, is incomplete. 2nd and 10 at the Flaget 19. John McGrath, attempting to pass, is sacked for an 8-yard loss by Ron Hettinger. 3rd and 18 at the Flaget 11. Robert Martin for 2 yards, tackled Ron Hettinger and Scott Marilla. Fourth and 16 at the Flaget 13. Flaget punts for 37 yards. The ball is taken at the Flaget 48 by Pete Gerstel and returned 4 yards. Tackled by Lawrence Hume and William Schuler. First and 10 at the Flaget 44. Chris Schweitzer for 7 yards. Tackled by Eugene Rogers. Second and 3 at the Flaget 39. Charles Schweitzer is hit by Gordon Chamberlain and fumbles. The ball is recovered by Michael Davis at the Flaget 44. First and 10 at the Flaget 44. John McGrath passes to James Cordery for 12 yards. Tackle Scott Marilla and Jeff Wilkamp. 5 minutes and 12 seconds left in the first half. First and 10 at the St. X 44. Robert Martin for 1 yard. Tackle John Matai. Second and 9 at the St. X 43. John McGrath for 10 yards. Tackle Pete Gerstel and Scott Murillo. Four minutes and 25 seconds left in the first half. First and 10 at the St. X 33. James Cordery for 2 yards. Tackle Ron Hettinger. Second and 8 at the St. X 31. John McGrath's pass, intended for Chuck Russ, is incomplete. Third and 8 at the St. X 31. John McGrath passes to James Schuler for 7 yards. Tackle Bill Fisher. 3:07 left in the half. Fourth and 1 at the St. X 24. James Cordery loses 1 yard. Tackle Mike Helline and Joe Altabellis. St. X takes over on downs. First and 10 at the St. X 25. John Horning for no gain. Tackle Eugene Rogers and Ken Groves. Second and 10 at the St. X 25. Chris Schweitzer for 14 yards. Tackle Michael Davis. First and 10 at the St. X 39. John Horning for 1 yard. Tackle Ken Groves. Second and 9 at the St. X 40. Chris Schweitzer for 4 yards. There's an offside penalty on St. X. Second and 14 at the St. X 35. John Horning for 5 yards. Tackle Lawrence Hume, Ray Snyder, and Gordon Chamberlain. Third and 9 at the St. X 40. Chris Schweitzer for 4 yards. Tackle Gordon Chamberlain. The penalty on St. X is declined. Fourth and 5 at the St. X 44. The St. X punt is mishandled. The kick nets 10 yards. Less than 1 minute remain in the half. First and 10 at the Flaget 46. John McGrath attempting to pass is sacked by Joe Altabellis for a loss of 11 yards. Second and 21 at the Flaget 35. John McGrath attempting to pass is sacked by Charles Perot for a loss of 9 yards. That is the last play of the second half. The score at the half is Flaget 6, St. X 0. The Flaget kickoff is taken at the 5-yard line and returned 17 yards to the St. X 23. First and 10 at the St. X 23. John Horning for 6 yards. Tackle Lawrence Hume and Michael Davis. Second and 4 at the St. X 29. Dick Carroll for 3 yards. Third and 1 at the St. X 32. Dick Carroll for no gain. Tackle John Boss. 4th and 1 at the St. X 32. The St. X punt travels 29 yards and is fair caught by William Schuler at the Flaget 39. 1st and 10 at the Flaget 39. Robert Martin for 8 yards. Tackle Steve Hess and Joe Altabellis. 2nd and 1 at the Flaget 47. John McGrath passes 38 yards to Chuck Russ. First and 10 at the St. X 14. John McGrath for 12 yards. Tackle Jeff Wellcamp. First and goal at the St. X 2. James Codry for 1 yard. 2nd and goal at the St. X 1. John McGrath for 1 yard and the touchdown. The drive covered 61 yards on 5 plays. The score, Flaget 12, St. X 6. Flaget will attempt a 2-point conversion. Robert Martin is tackled at the 3-yard line by Dick Carroll and Jeff Wellcamp. The score remains Flaget 12, St. X 0. The kickoff was returned by John Potter to the 31-yard line. He is pushed out of bounds by James Nolte. There are 4 plays missing from the film. St. X gains 3 yards on 3 plays and punts to the Flaget 32. First and 10 at the Flaget 32. Robert Martin loses 3 yards, tackled by Mike Helline. 2nd and 13 at the Flaget 29. James Carter for 2 yards, tackle John Horning and Joe Altabellis. 3rd and 11 at the Flaget 30. John McGrath's pass is incomplete. 4th and 11 at the Flaget 30. George Willeb's punt is partially blocked by Bill Nett and goes 7 yards and out of bounds at the Flaget 37. 1st and 10 at the Flaget 37. Chris Schweitzer's pass is incomplete. 2nd and 10 at the Flaget 37. Chris Schweitzer fumbles the snap but recovers for no gain. Third and 10 at the Flaget 37. Chris Schweitzer passes for 27 yards to Mike Knabel. Tackle William Schuler. Penalty on Flaget is declined. First and goal from the Flaget 10. Chris Schweitzer's pass is deflected by George Willeb and is incomplete. 2nd and goal from the Flaget 10. Chris Schweitzer's pass is incomplete. 3rd and goal from the Flaget 10. Chris Schweitzer's pass to Nick Gagel is good for the touchdown. The drive covered 37 yards on 6 plays. The score, Flaget 12, St. X 6. The penalty on Flaget is declined. The extra point by John Forgan is good. The score, Flaget 12, St. X 7. The kickoff is fielded by Chuck Russ and tackled by David Bearden and Jake Pukes at the 19. First and 10 at the Flaget 19. Robert Martin for 7 yards. Tackle Scott Marilla and Ron Hettinger. Second and 3 at the Flaget 26. John McGrath for 13 yards. Tackle David Bearden. First and 10 at the Flaget 39. James Cudry for 2 yards. Tackle John Matai. 2 minutes and 14 seconds remain in the third quarter. Second and 8 at the Flaget 41. John McGrath for 3 yards. Tackle Scott Marilla. Third and 5 at the Flaget 44. John McGrath passes to Robert Martin for 16 yards. Tackle Bill Nett, David Bearden, and Scott Marilla. First and 10 at the St. X 40. John McGrath for 3 yards. Tackle David Bearden. Second and 7 at the St. X 37. John McGrath's pass is incomplete. Third and 7 at the St. X 37. John McGrath's pass is incomplete. There is a penalty on St. X. First and 10 at the St. X 23. Robert Martin for 20 yards. Tackle Scott Marilla, Bill Fisher, and Pete Gerstle. That is the end of the third quarter. First and goal at the St. X 3. Robert Martin for 2 yards. Tackle Jeff Wilkamp. Second and goal at the St. X 1. Robert Martin for 1 yard and the touchdown. The drive covered 81 yards on 11 plays. The score, Flaget 18, St. X 7. John McGrath passes to Danny Wilder for the 2-point conversion. The ball is deflected by Jeff Wilkamp and caught by James Schuler. The score, Flaget 20, St. X 7. The kickoff is returned to the St. X 21. First and 10 at the St. X 21. Chris Schweitzer for 14 yards. Tackle Michael Davis. First and 10 at the St. X 36. Chris Schweitzer's pass is incomplete. Second and 10 at the St. X 36. Chris Schweitzer's pass is complete to Nick Agel for 12 yards. Tackle John Boz. First and 10 at the St. X 48. Dick Carroll for 2 yards. Tackled by Michael Davis. Second and 8 at the 50. Chris Schweitzer's pass to David Radaman is incomplete. Third and 8 at the 50. Chris Schweitzer passes 43 yards to Mike Knabel. Tackle George Woollop. First and goal at the Flaget 7. John Honing for 2 yards. Tackle Daniel Wilder. Second and goal at the Flaget 5. Chris Schweitzer passes 5 yards to John Honing for the score. The drive covered 79 yards on 8 plays. The score, Flaget 20, St. X 13. John Fargan's kick is good. The score, Flaget 20, St. X 14. Robert Martin returns the kickoff to the Flaget 17. Tackle Alan Clyer and Jack Pukes. First and 10 at the Flaget 17. Robert Martin for 4 yards. Tackle David Radaman. Second and 6 at the Flaget 21. John McGrath's pass is incomplete. Third and 6 at the Flaget 20. John McGrath's pass intended for Chuck Russ is incomplete. 4th and 6 at the Flaget 21. George Willow punts 40 yards. It is fielded by Joe Clemens at the St. X 41 and tackled at the 37 by Gordon Chamberlain. 1st and 10 at the St. X 37. John Horning slips and falls at the St. X 35 for a 2-yard loss. 2nd and 12 at the St. X 35. Chris Schweitzer recovers his fumble at the St. X 31 for a 4-yard loss. 3rd and 16 at the St. X 31. Chris Schweitzer is sacked by Lawrence Hume for a 6-yard loss. 4th and 22 at the St. X 25. The St. X punt is taken by Chuck Russ at the Flaget 43. 6:12 remain in the game. 1st and 10 at the Flaget 43. James Quidry for 3 yards. Tackle Scott Morella. 2nd and 7 at the Flaget 46. John McGrath loses 3 yards. Tackle Mike Haline and Scott Morella. 3rd and 10 at the Flaget 43. John McGrath loses 1 yard. Tackle Ed Blazer and Mike Haline. 4th and 11 at the Flaget 42. The Flaget punt is taken at the St. X 26 by Dick Carroll and returned to the St. X 35. Tackle Chuck Russ. 1st and 10 at the St. X 35. Chris Schweitzer passes for 5 yards to John Wolford. 2nd and 5 at the St. X 40. Chris Schweitzer is sacked for a loss of 13 yards by Steve Chamberlain. 3rd and 19 at the St. X 27. Chris Schweitzer's pass is incomplete. There's 2 minutes and 9 seconds left in the game. 4th and 19 at the St. X 27. The St. X punt of 43 yards is fair caught at the Flaget 33. 1st and 10 at the Flaget 33. Robert Martin for 4 yards, tackled by Bill Nett. 1 minute and 54 seconds left in the game. 2nd and 7 at the Flaget 38. James Quidry for 6 yards, tackled by Bill Fisher. 1st and 10 at the Flaget 43. Robert Martin for no gain, tackle Mike Haline. 15-yard penalty on Flaget. 1st and 25 at the Flaget 28. James Quidry for 72 yards and the touchdown. The drive covered 67 yards on 4 plays. The score, Flaget 26, St. X 14. John McGrath's extra point attempt is no good. The score remains Flaget 26, St. X 14. 1 minute and 12 seconds left in the game. Flaget kickoff was taken by Dick Carroll and returned to the St. X 23. 1st and 10 at the St. X 23. Chris Schweitzer for 10 yards, tackle Gordon Chamberlain. 1st and 10 at the St. X 33. Dan McGee for 15 yards, he's tackle at the St. X 48. 1st and 10 at the St. X 48. Chris Schweitzer's pass is incomplete. 2nd and 10 at the St. X 48. Chris Schweitzer for 18 yards. He's tackled by Lawrence Hume and Ken Groves. First and 10 at the Flaget 34. Chris Schweitzer's pass is intercepted by Gordon Chamberlain at the Flaget 27 as time expires. The final score is Flaget 26, St. X 14, and Flaget wins the 1971 city championship.